Picture this, you're in a massive rush, standing right outside two different supermarkets. Now, you happen to know for an absolute fact that both of these stores have an exact 5-minute average wait time at the checkout.
So, two supermarkets both have a 5-minute average wait. Which one do you choose? I mean, if the average wait is exactly the same, it shouldn't matter at all, right? Well, actually, it matters a ton. You see, if you're only looking at the average, you are literally missing half the story. The average tells you exactly where the center of the data is, sure, but it tells you absolutely nothing about the spread of that data.
Let's look a little deeper. Supermarket A has a wait time standard deviation of 2 minutes, but Supermarket B has a standard deviation of 4 minutes. What does that actually mean for you? Well, Supermarket A is far more consistent. The wait times are clustered tightly right around that 5-minute mark. Supermarket B, on the other hand, is highly unpredictable. You might walk right up to the register, or you might be stuck there pulling your hair out for 15 minutes. Understanding the spread is absolutely crucial.
And that is exactly what we're tackling today. 1. The mystery of data spread. 2. Understanding standard deviation. 3. Calculating the variance steps. 4. Comparing different data sets. And 5. The empirical rule. By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly what standard deviation is, the actual mathematical formula behind it, and how to apply it in real-world situations to truly make sense of the data around you.
The mystery of data spread. Let's officially introduce the star of our show.
The standard deviation is simply a number that measures how far data values are from their mean. It's always a positive number, or 0. If the standard deviation is small, it means your data points are hugging tight to the average. If it's large, your data is scattered and spread completely out. It gives us a fantastic numerical measure of the overall variation in any given data set.
2. Understanding standard deviation. Now that we've got the basic idea down, let's see how we actually use this concept to figure out how unusual a specific event is. This brilliantly illustrates how standard deviation acts like a measuring stick. Let's jump back to Supermarket A. Remember, the mean wait is 5 minutes, with a standard deviation of 2 minutes. Let's say Rosa waits for 7 minutes. Since 7 is exactly 2 minutes longer than the average of 5, we can confidently say Rosa waited exactly 1 standard deviation above the average. Make sense? Now think about Ben. He only waits 1 minute. 1 is 4 minutes less than the average of 5. And since our standard deviation is 2, those 4 minutes equal 2 standard deviations. So Ben's speedy wait is 2 standard deviations below the average.
Now wait, this is important. Let's lock in a super useful rule of thumb right here. Whenever a data value is more than 2 standard deviations away from the average, kind of like Ben's crazy fast checkout line, it sits right on the borderline of what statisticians consider to be far from the average. It's a rough rule short, but it's an incredible mental shortcut for instantly spotting unusual data.
3. Calculating the variance steps. Let's break down the actual math behind this.
Okay, don't let the formulas scare you. It's really just 5 logical steps. First, find the mean. Second, find the deviations, which literally just means taking each data point and subtracting the mean. Third, you square those deviations. Fourth, you average those squared numbers, which gives you a completely new term called the variance. And finally, step 5, just take the square root of that variance and boom, you have your standard deviation. Now, right about now, you might be raising your hand and asking, why do we go through all the trouble of squaring the deviations in step 3? Like, why not just add up all the raw deviations to see the total spread? It's probably the most common question students ask. Well, here is the secret. Because some data points are above the average, they create positive deviations. Others are below the average, creating negative deviations. If you just add them all up straight away, they completely cancel each other out, and the sum will always be exactly 0, every single time. By squaring them, we force all those numbers to be positive. This lets us find the true average squared deviation, which is the variance. But because the variance is a squared measure, it doesn't match the original units of our data. That is exactly why we have to take the square root at the very end to get back to reality.
It helps to talk through a real example. Consider some sample data from a 5th grade class where the average age is about 10.5 years. If we look at the calculated deviations, the 9-year-old has a negative deviation of negative 1.525. If we just added the columns straight down, those negatives would vanish against the older kid's positive numbers. So we square them, creating positive numbers that we can actually sum up to find our variance. Now, in the real world, you're almost always going to use a calculator or computer software to do this heavy lifting. Your brainpower should be focused on what the standard deviation actually tells us about the data. But there's a sneaky little trap here.
Wait, this is super important. When you average those square deviations to find the variance, why do we sometimes divide by the total number of items minus 1, instead of just the total number?
It all comes down to whether you have a sample or the entire population. If you ran a full census and have data for the entire population, you just divide by n, the total number of items. Simple. But if you only have a sample, just a small piece of that population, you divide by n minus 1. Theoretical mathematics tells us that dividing by n minus 1 simply gives us a much better, more accurate estimate of the true population variance.
4. Comparing different datasets. Time to use this as the ultimate equalizer.
Let's connect this to real life with a classic problem. Meet John and Ollie. They go to completely different high schools, and they want to know who is actually performing better academically compared to their peers. John has a 2.85 GPA on a standard 4-point scale. His school's average is a 3.0, with a standard deviation of 0.7. Ollie, though, has a 77 on a 100-point scale. His school's average is an 80, with a standard deviation of 10. So, how on earth do you compare a 4-point scale to a 100-point scale? You use the standard deviation. We calculate something called a z-score. A z-score literally just tells us exactly how many standard deviations a specific value is from its mean. The formula is a breeze. It's the value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. Let's run the numbers for our two students.
Let's break down the results. For John, 2.85 minus 3.0 divided by 0.7 gives us a z-score of negative 0.21. For Ollie, 77 minus 80 divided by 10 gives us a z-score of negative 0.30. Now, here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Both guys are below their school's average, that's why both z-scores are negative. But John is only 0.21 standard deviations below his average, whereas Ollie is 0.30 standard deviations below. Since John is less far below average than Ollie, John is technically performing better compared to his classmates. See? Z-scores let you compare apples and oranges perfectly.
5. The empirical rule. Let's finish up by looking at the incredible predictive power of the standard deviation. If you know the standard deviation, you can literally predict how entire populations behave. First up is Chebyshev's rule. This is amazing because it applies to absolutely any data set, no matter how weirdly shaped the distribution is. Chebyshev guarantees that at least 75% of your data will fall within 2 standard deviations of the mean, at least 89% will fall within 3, and at least 95% will be within 4.5 standard deviations.
But if your data happens to have a nice symmetric bell-shaped distribution, we can get way more precise. Enter the empirical rule. For bell-shaped data, a solid 68% of the data sits squarely within just 1 standard deviation of the mean. A massive 95% sits within 2 standard deviations, and over 99% sits within 3. Meaning, if you ever spot a data point beyond 3 standard deviations in a bell curve, you are looking at an exceptionally rare event.
So, we've solved the mystery of data spread, we've tackled the formulas, and we've used z-scores to compare the completely incomparable. But I want to leave you with this final thought. If you were running a business right now, maybe an airline, a massive factory, or even our supermarket from the very beginning, where would understanding the standard deviation actually save you more money than just knowing your average performance? Think about consistency. Think about risk.